something that you and your husband are currently teaching them? And I know you kind of already said it with them being independent and doing things themselves, but is there anything else?
Yeah, I would say their faith and their belief in the Lord and Jesus, and just knowing that no matter what they go through in life, they're never going to be alone. They have their family and they have the creator of the universe.
Speaking of being great parents, I understand that you and your husband tried for a fourth baby, and sadly, one of them actually resulted in a miscarriage and another in a stillbirth. I'm going to have you kind of walk us through what it's like getting that positive pregnancy test, getting so excited, and then unfortunately suffering a loss.
Yeah, so we had our oldest, and then when she was around 2 years old, we tried again, and I got that positive pregnancy test. At this point, Keenan was with the New York Giants, and I went for my first ultrasound with Cadence. And so, like, I remember distinctively, like, I packed her like a Ziploc full of Cheerios so that she could like eat her snack while I was on the table. And I got on the table and they flashed the baby on the screen for the ultrasound. And I immediately knew something was wrong because the baby was just laying there. I was supposed to be 11 weeks at that time. And I looked at the ultrasound technician and I just started frantically asking, is there a heartbeat? Is there a heartbeat? And she was doing measurements and stuff. And she said, no, I'm sorry. It looked like the baby passed around 8.5 weeks. And that obviously was very, very devastating. I didn't even know that my baby had passed for even a few weeks. I still had like so many like hopes and dreams for that life inside of me. And I remember leaving the office to a text from Keenan, and he had just finished practice and was about to go into like some meetings. And he texted me and said, oh, how did your appointment go? And obviously I don't want to tell him over text because he's about to go back to work. And so I just said, oh, we'll talk about it when you get home, which is probably the worst thing to say because he stepped out and called me and was like, what's going on? Because that's not something that I would say. And I was like, I'll just talk to you when you get home. Like I didn't want to say it over the phone. And he was like, just tell me, like you're worrying me. And so I told him, and that was a really hard moment for both of us. Yeah, that was our first loss.
For those of you that are listening that might not know exactly what a miscarriage is, I'm going to go ahead and define that. It is essentially the spontaneous loss of a woman's pregnancy before the 20th week that can be both physically and obviously emotionally painful. It is the most common type of pregnancy loss. Miscarriages often occur because the fetus isn't developing normally. So, Lauren, I wanted to ask you, because again, being somebody that is currently pregnant myself, and I'm sure my listeners are going to be curious about it. You say that you obviously didn't know that the baby had passed, which I'm assuming a lot of women don't know, kind of like I spoke about at the beginning. Like you don't have the ability to listen to the heartbeat all the time. The baby is so small, you don't feel any kicks. Did you have any sort of symptoms that would alert you, or any warning signs that would alert you to the fact that your baby was getting ready to miscarry?
No, I didn't have anything. I've heard some moms feel like their symptoms stop, but then at the same time, like I've had pregnancies where my symptoms stop and my baby is still living. Just because I had a loss doesn't mean that you will have a loss, or anyone who's listening to this will have a loss. Everyone is different and has their own journey to go through. So I am fully believing that you and everyone else who is listening to this is going to have a healthy baby and a beautiful delivery.
Thank you. And once again, I appreciate hearing those words. And for the sake of other people that are listening that might have suffered a loss, or that might be curious as to what potential warning signs might be, I feel like it might be a little bit informative for somebody, because if you were experiencing anything, which in your case, you said you weren't, it might be something where women can go to the OBGYN maybe a little bit earlier. So I wonder if down the road, technology will get to the point where women, if they feel a certain way or something is going wrong, where we could potentially go to the doctor sooner to potentially prevent any type of loss. Can you please explain the grieving process? I'm sure some women, once again, that are listening in right now, either A, know somebody that has miscarried, or B, has sadly experienced it themselves. And this isn't just for the women, right? Like this is for the men out there that have their partner that are also sharing this unfortunate journey with them. So this is both for the women that are experiencing it physically, mentally, and emotionally, but let's not forget about the guys out there that are dealing with this type of situation as well.
My best advice is don't do it alone. Don't isolate yourself. Don't take it upon yourself to heal by yourself. I would really lean into your partner, your best friend, your family, and really get the support you need at this time, because this is a life that we're talking about. This is your baby, and losing your baby is extremely traumatic and hard and difficult. And I would look into resources in your area if there are support groups. The Lost Mama is a nonprofit that I started, and it is a great place to come to for mentoring. We're going to have retreats later on, but there's all types of support groups out there and help. So don't do it alone. Don't go through the grieving process alone.
We are going to be talking about the Lost Mama very soon. Before we get into that, I would like to have you please explain the difference between a miscarriage and a stillbirth, because I also know, unfortunately, that you suffered a stillbirth with your husband as well.
So a miscarriage by definition is, unless Google changed it, under 24 weeks, and a stillbirth is 24 weeks and above. But some people feel like it's more correct to say 20 weeks and above. So a stillbirth is you're actually giving birth to a baby. It's still a birth. So it's a full baby that you give birth to, and everything that happens after that is the same as giving birth to a living baby. But the other end of that is that you don't get to take this baby home with you. Your baby has passed away.